This is in the matter of Ashley Wyrick, file number 2565.
Here, set for trial today in this particular matter. Appearances, please, beginning with our guardian ad litem.
Lee Heiss, lawyer, guardian ad litem for the child.
Joseph Latarski on behalf of the department, appearing with Christopher Farian, Kevin Sellers, and Vanessa Bird.
Michael McFarland, appearing on behalf of father who is not present and was not present at our last court hearing either, Your Honor.
Have you heard from your client, Mr. McFarland?
I have not, Your Honor.
Introduction.
He has called me in the past. We have communicated in the past, so he does have my phone number and access to me through my office.
Thank you for confirming that. Introductions from our representatives.
Christopher Farian for the Department of Health and Human Services.
Kevin Sellers with the Department of Health and Human Services.
Vanessa Bird, DHHS.
And I would note we also have Ms. Wyrick, who is a non-respondent parent, really non-participant today. The record should reflect that there was a brief bench conference held prior to us assuming the record, just maybe to review the last couple of orders and make sure that we're all on track for today. Just by way of brief review, there was a hearing in March 25th, wherein the court granted the motion to revoke the request for jury trial made by Mr. McFarland on behalf of his client, who was there at that time. His client requested to appear at the court to release his parental rights. That was scheduled for April 9th. He did not appear. The summons was issued indicating a bench trial would be held on the petition for termination of parental rights today. I have documentation in the file that Mr. Kevin Sellers served personally Oscar Leo Charles Bucher with the summons and petition on April 20th, 2021. Notice is proper and everything is in line for us to proceed on that termination petition for this morning. I also understand Mr. McFarland may have a motion. You'll have to unmute.
Of course, thank you. My client did not appear last time. He's not appeared this time, Your Honor. I cannot provide effective counsel without my clients giving me some direction as to how he wishes to appear. I don't know whether he wishes to proceed to the trial. His intentions are still to release. I have no idea. So for that reason, I would ask to be available but excused from this trial.
Any objections?
No objection.
Take no position.
All right, Mr. McFarland, I find your motion to be appropriate. Mr. Bucher has clearly had no contact with you. It would be nearly impossible for you to advocate on his behalf without communication from him. Also, noting his last communication was to request to release his parental rights. I don't find requiring you to be present on his behalf is necessary. You are excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Witnesses, Mr. Latarski, or opening statement, or however you want to proceed.
I'd waive an opening statement at this time, Your Honor, and I'd call Kevin Sellers.
Very good. Mr. Sellers, please raise your right hand and let me know when it's raised.
Great.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Latarski.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sellers, where are you currently employed?
Human Services.
Mr. Sellers, you're going to have to get closer to your microphone. It's not coming in very clear.
I'm currently employed at Lenawee County Department of Health and Human Services.
And what's your position at the Department of Health and Human Services?
I am a child protective service worker.
And are you assigned to a case involving complaints regarding Ashley Wyrick?
Yes.
And when did you receive that complaint?
I received a complaint on or about 8/5. Hang on a second. Apologize for that. I received a complaint on 9/9/2020.
And what was that complaint regarding?
The complaint that we received in regards to that was that there was disclosures from Ashley Wyrick that her father, Oscar Booker, touched her inappropriately.
Okay. Now, is Oscar Booker the legal father of Ashley Wyrick?
That is correct.
Okay. And how was his paternity of or parentage of Ashley Wyrick established?
That was done through Lenawee County Friend of the Court.
Okay. And did you investigate the complaint that you received regarding Ashley Wyrick about the disclosure you mentioned?
Yes, I did.
And what was the result of your investigation?
Myself and the Michigan State Police did the investigation jointly. Ashley Wyrick was forensically interviewed at the Child Advocacy Center here in Adrian, where she provided disclosures of what occurred. I proceeded forward at that point with Michigan State Police trying to make face-to-face contact with Mr. Booker to interview him. Mr. Booker refused to meet with me until the petition was filed.
At the time that the petition was filed, was there any criminal action brought against Oscar Booker as a result of the allegations or disclosures made by Ashley Wyrick?
I do know that Michigan State Police, the trooper was continuing his investigation. My last contact with the trooper, he turned his report findings over to the prosecutor's office, and I haven't heard since then.
Okay. At the time that you submitted your petition, was Ashley Wyrick living with Oscar Booker?
No, she was not.
Who was Ashley Wyrick living with?
She was living with her mother, Christy.
Okay. And how long has it been since Oscar Booker has lived with either Christy Wyrick and Ashley Wyrick?
Ashley has lived with her mother, Christy, for the last several years. And the last contact that Ashley had with Mr. Booker would have been midsummer of 2020.
Okay. What were the specific allegations that necessitated your filing of this petition?
The disclosures that Ashley provided during the forensic interview.
And what were those disclosures?
She disclosed how Oscar, while she was in Oscar's care, and she was sleeping in her father's bedroom, and she woke up and the things, or her father was doing things to her in a sexual manner, had her PJs, her pajamas pulled down.
Was there anything else that happened? Mr. Sellers?
Yes.
Was there anything else that happened in that incident that was disclosed?
I can't remember right offhand. I know that there was 2 incidents, just as I described, that Ashley Wyrick disclosed about. 2 separate incidents.
And were these, was the nature of these incidents sexual in nature
Yeah.
regarding the contact that was made between Mr. Bucher and Ashley Wyrick?
Yes, they were.
Okay. Were there any other children in the home at the time of these incidents?
None that I found through my investigation.
Do Christy Wyrick and Oscar Bucher have any other children in common?
Not together, they don't.
Okay. Would it be in the best interest for Oscar Bucher's parental rights to Ashley Wyrick to be terminated?
Yes.
Is there a significant parent-child bond between Ashley Wyrick and Mr. Bucher?
No, there is not.
And you indicated that Miss Ashley Wyrick has been living with her mother during the pendency of this case.
That is correct.
Has Mr. Bucher attempted to make any contact with Ashley Wyrick during the pendency of this case?
Not since I filed my petition, he has not.
Has Ashley Wyrick seen any psychologists or therapists with regard to what she disclosed in this matter?
From my understanding, she did do counseling services through Catholic Charities, and she has followed through with those services.
Through those counseling services, was it ever recommended that she have parenting time with her father during the pendency of this case?
I'm not sure if there was. I know Mr. Chris Farian might be able to answer that question.
Okay. Has Ashley Wyrick indicated any wishes about what she'd like to see happen in this case?
She hasn't provided me any statements in regards to that.
Okay. And did you indicate whether or not Miss Wyrick has any siblings in her home at this time?
Miss Christy Wyrick?
Are there any siblings of Ashley Wyrick in her home at this time?
There is occasionally there is a step sibling.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions for Mr. Sellers at this time.
Questions, Ms. Heiss?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Sellers, you were the author of the termination petition dated and signed October 22nd, 2020.
That is correct.
Are all of the statements outlined in that petition truthful, accurate, and a complete representation of the results of your investigation?
Yes.
Would you say that the statements in that petition accurately describe the incidents that gave rise to the mandatory request for termination?
That is correct.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions, Mr. Latarski, Ms. Heiss?
No.
No, Your Honor.
Any other witnesses, Mr. Latarski?
Mr. Farian, briefly, Your Honor.
Good, Mr. Farian, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Latarski.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Farian.
Good morning.
Mr. Farian, where are you currently employed?
I am currently employed with Department of Health and Human Services here in Lenawee County.
And what's your position with DHHS?
I am currently an ongoing worker.
And are you the current ongoing worker in the matter involving Ashley Wyrick?
I am.
And have you worked with the family during the pendency of this case?
I've been working with them since October, November of last year. Yes.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to have any contact with Mr. Booker throughout the pendency of this case?
I've had several contacts with him only via telephone. A couple times we had talked, and I think prior to, I believe the date that was already stated, March 25th, he had requested that he would like to be removed, but he'd like to have his rights, sign off his rights, I guess is the way he had put it. And that's when we had arranged for the hearing on the 9th, where he was going to do that. Since the 9th, I have had no contact with him. I attempted to go out there this past Monday to personally make sure he had all the paperwork he needed. Mr. Sellers and I were working in conjunction with each other to ensure that he knew the date and time to be here today. I left a business card that day to give me a call with a note on it to give me a call. Didn't hear from him. This morning I attempted to call and text, and I got a message sent back via text that I've been blocked from Mr. Booker's phone. So that's, I haven't had contact since we had attempted to set up the last date.
Okay. And has the address that you've had contact with Mr. Booker at the same that was indicated on the initial paperwork on the JCO4B, the address in Clayton, Michigan?
I have a 5987 Benner Highway, if that's correct.
Yes.
That would be it, yes.
Have you offered any services to the family in this matter?
When I had taken over the case, Miss Christy Wyrick was already receiving counseling through, it would have been Catherine Cobb. And then Ashley Wyrick, the victim in this case, she's been receiving services through the Lenawee County Child Advocacy Center. Specifically, Miss Erin Abbott was the counselor for that. Since she has been going there, they've actually reduced the counseling. Miss Abbott says she's doing really well, especially with the no contact with Mr. Booker. There was some times, though, that when court cases and things were coming up, she did have some, she became very stressed, and Miss Abbott had to do a little bit more counseling during those times. And I think between...
If I could stop you there for a second, Mr.
Sure.
Farian, who do you mean by she? Christy Wyrick or Ashley Wyrick?
Ashley Wyrick.
Okay.
During the time when we were having previous court dates, she would have some anxiety and things of that nature. Miss Abbott from the Child Advocacy Center was utilized a little bit more then. Since then, her mother, Christy Wyrick, and myself, we've kind of kept her out of that loop when court dates were, and it seems to have helped as well. So. Okay.
Has Ashley Wyrick's placement with her mother remained appropriate during the pendency of this case?
It absolutely has.
And to your knowledge, has Christy Wyrick let me rephrase. To your knowledge, has Christy Wyrick maintained no contact with Mr. Booker throughout the pendency of this case?
Yeah, to my knowledge, yes, she has.
And same question, has Ashley Wyrick maintained no contact with Mr. Booker throughout the pendency of this case while you've supervised?
Yeah, yes, she has.
Okay. Do you believe it's in the best interest for Mr. Booker's parental rights to be terminated to Ashley Wyrick at this time based on the allegations that were required this mandatory petition to be filed?
I do.
Thank you. I have no further questions for Mr. Farian.
Questions, Ms. Heiss?
No questions. Thank you.
Any other witnesses, Mr. Latarski?
I'd call Christy Wyrick.
Ms. Wyrick, please raise your right hand and let me know when it's raised. No. Oh, thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Latarski?
Okay. Ms. Wyrick, were you ever married to Oscar Booker?
No, I was not.
Okay. But he became the legal father of Ashley Wyrick. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And back in approximately September of last year, did you make a complaint to CPS regarding disclosure that your daughter made to you?
I contacted the police first and they put the reference in or the referral in, and then CPS contacted me and I've continued to cooperate with them since.
Okay. At that time that that disclosure was made to you from your daughter, was Oscar Booker living with you?
No.
How long had it been since you and Mr. Booker were living together?
Several years. I'm gonna say winter of 2018. Her and I stayed at his house for I think a week, maybe two, and then we moved out because things just got really bad and it was not a good environment for her.
Was it bad because of a domestic situation, or was it regarding the allegations that your daughter would make in September of 2020 about Mr. Booker's alleged sexual misconduct towards her?
No, it was it got bad because of a domestic issue. Him and his ex-girlfriend, Brianna Spiegel, were constantly drunk and fighting and being very physical with each other, and I couldn't do that anymore.
Okay. So since that time that you left living with Mr. Booker, have you maintained your own housing?
Yes.
Your own place to live?
Yes.
And after you left Mr. Booker's home, did Mr. Booker continue to have contact with yourself and Ashley?
Occasionally, yes.
Okay. When was the last time that Oscar Booker had contact with you and Ashley?
With me, I have not talked to him since the beginning of 2020. And Ashley, it was, I want to say beginning of the summer, maybe middle summer of 2020 is when she last had contact with him.
And was that contact because of parenting time?
No, he was at my landlord's house and they were just talking.
Okay. Do you have a custody order regarding Ashley between yourself and Mr. Booker?
Yes, I do.
And do you have sole custody?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I have sole physical and legal custody, and he was not entitled to any parenting time, and that was through Graham Teague.
In what county?
Lenawee County. We went in front of the referee, and Graham Teague happened to be the referee for that.
Okay. Is Ashley continued to live with you since the beginning of this case?
Yes.
Okay. Has she received any services in regards to what she disclosed?
She was going to a girls group with the Child Advocacy Center, but then they had to shut that down because of the pandemic stuff. And she has been seeing Aaron Abbott at the CAC. But since then, she has graduated, and Aaron, it's now on a needed basis, as needed basis. So if she's struggling a little bit more, I can get a hold of Aaron, and Aaron will do another session with her.
Have you cooperated with any investigation that law enforcement has conducted with regards to the disclosures that your daughter made?
I believe I have, yes.
Okay. Do you believe it's in the best interest of your daughter that Mr. Booker's parental rights to her be terminated at this time?
Yes, I do.
Has your daughter expressed any interests or wishes regarding how she'd like to see things in this case play out?
She does not want any contact with him. She does not want to see him. She doesn't want anything to do with him.
Okay. Do you believe that there's still a parent-child bond between Mr. Booker and your daughter?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Questions, Ms. Heiss?
Just briefly, Your Honor. Ms. Ryrick, Ashley lived with Mr. Booker until she was age 8. Is that true?
Yes.
And then since she's been with you, she has a half sibling in that environment. Is that right?
No,
Okay.
she did. But 8 years ago, she passed away. She drowned in an accident.
Are there no children in your household besides Ashley at this time?
My fiance's son is here after school.
Okay. And Ashley has some pets at your house, cats, right?
She has a cat, and we have 2 dogs.
And she does chores at home. She has some chores that she does in your family.
Yes.
And would you say that she's improving in school academically?
Absolutely. She went from failing everything to passing everything with A's and B's.
And socially, she seems to be doing better in school recently.
Yes. She comes home every day from school and tells me all about friends or somebody new that came up to her and started talking to her, and she's all excited because she made a new friend.
Is she taking her mental health medication regularly?
Yes, she is. She takes it every night at 6 o'clock.
She sleeps pretty well, like a normal teenager, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
She likes to stay up late at night, but then she likes to sleep in the morning, right?
Yeah. On the weekends, I let her do that. I try not to let her do it during the week.
Okay. And online school didn't go as well. She wasn't as happy, but it was COVID, so she did online school for a period of time. Is that right?
Yes.
And then she went to in-person school, right?
Yes, I transferred her. We were doing virtual schooling through Sand Creek. And then once I found out that she was failing everything for that semester, I transferred her over to Adrian so she could go to in-person.
And are you still transporting her to the bus stop so she can get to that school of choice?
No, she goes to Adrian. She doesn't go to school of choice anymore.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Any follow-up, Mr. Latarski?
No follow-up, Your Honor.
Any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Heiss, is there anyone you'd like us to hear from today?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Closing comments, Mr. Latarski.
Yes, Your Honor. This petition was filed in this case based on the allegations or the disclosures of Ashley Wyrick that she had made regarding some inappropriate sexual contact that was made by Mr. Booker against her over a period of time, several years in the past, with Miss Ashley Wyrick making the disclosures to her mother in September of 2020. As Miss Christy Wyrick testified, upon becoming aware of these disclosures from her daughter, she contacted law enforcement. Law enforcement also contacted the Lenawee County Child Protective Services to also investigate. Ms. Wyrick was safety planned with her mother and didn't have any contact with Mr. Booker, which was successfully maintained over the course of this case. And as Ms. Wyrick indicated, that the last contact between Ashley Wyrick and Mr. Booker occurred approximately sometime in the summer of 2020, I believe she indicated. Based on the seriousness of the allegations, what the contact between Mr. Booker and Ashley Wyrick included, believe that the court has heard testimony that would establish that, pursuant to MCL 7128.19B3B1, that the child or sibling of a child has suffered physical injury or physical sexual abuse under one or more of the following circumstances. The Parents Act caused the physical injury or the physical or sexual abuse, and the court finds that there's a reasonable likelihood that the child will suffer from injury or abuse in the foreseeable future if placed in the parental home. Obviously, Miss Christy Wyrick indicated that she has the sole physical and legal custody of Ashley Wyrick, but there were times in the past where Ms. Wyrick and her daughter were living with Mr. Booker. If Ashley Wyrick were allowed to be in a situation where she was in Mr. Booker's care for some reason, I believe that there's a reasonable likelihood that this child may be exploited in similar fashion to what was indicated in her initial disclosures of what happened between herself and Mr. Booker. I also believe that there's been sufficient testimony for the court to terminate Mr. Booker's parental rights to Ashley Wyrick pursuant to MCL 7128.19B3(1), as there's reasonable likelihood based on the conduct capacity of the parent that the child will be harmed if returned to their home. Again, similar to the comments I made previously, if Ms. Wyrick were ever to be in Mr. Booker's care, there's the reasonable likelihood that this perpetration of sexual acts against a minor could take place again. So that creates a risk of harm to Ashley Wyrick if she were ever to be allowed to be in Mr. Booker's care, since he was established to be her legal father. And I also believe that there's sufficient evidence that's been offered to terminate Mr. Booker's parental rights to Ashley Wyrick based on pursuant to MCL 7.19B3K. It would be lowercase Roman numeral 9. Parent abused the child or sibling of child, and the abuse included one or more of the following: sexual abuse, as the term is defined in Section 2 of the Child Protection Law. And that definition means sexual abuse is defined as engaging in sexual contact or sexual penetration, as those terms are defined in Section 528 of the Michigan Penal Code. So for the foregoing reasons stated and based on the evidence that's been presented, I believe it's in the best interest for this court to terminate Mr. Booker's rights to Ashley Wyrick at this time. There's been testimony that the parent-child bond, if any, has dissipated to a point that it is non-existent, and that Ashley does not wish to have any further contact with Mr. Booker based upon the allegations that were made in this case involving the allegations of the sexual abuse by Mr. Booker against Ashley Wyrick that occurred several years in the past, but she'd only made those disclosures or felt comfortable making those disclosures to her mother back in September of 2020. So for all those reasons, I believe that Your Honor should terminate Mr. Booker's parental rights to Ashley Wyrick at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Heiss.
Yes, Your Honor, I believe it is my recommendation that the termination of this Oscar Booker's rights progress today under the 3 statutory provisions that the state has outlined. I believe the proofs meet all of the standards, and I believe that this is in the best interest of Ashley Wyrick. She wants the termination. She does not want reunification. She does not want contact with Mr. Booker. Her bond with her mother is meeting all of her needs in a normal environment where she has family and a home from which she attends school. She sleeps well, she eats well. Ashley has improved academically and socially in many ways, with the basis being her mother's home, and she has been attending counseling until it was less needed than it had been in the past. It's Ashley's wishes that her father's rights are terminated. I don't believe that he has benefited from any services that would reduce the risk that the child will be harmed if returned to his care. It is my recommendation that the termination progress today, and that this child is, that it's in her best interest to remain with her mother. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Heiss. Termination of parental rights hearing is divided into 2 phases for purposes of the bench analysis. The first phase is to determine whether there is clear and convincing evidence to support statutory grounds for termination of parental rights. The second is to determine if it is in the child's best interest to terminate parental rights by a preponderance of the evidence. The first standard is a clear and convincing evidence standard. The statutes that the court has been asked to review are those that have been previously indicated by Mr. Latarski. The court will consider that the standard has been met, and I will articulate the grounds for that in a moment under 2 statutes. MCL 712A.19B3BI. The child has suffered physical injury or physical or sexual abuse under the following circumstances. the parent's act caused a physical injury or sexual abuse, and the court finds there is a reasonable likelihood that the child will suffer from injury or abuse in the foreseeable future if placed in the parental home of Oscar Leo Charles Booker. Under MCL 712A.19B3KIX or 9, the parent abused the child or a sibling of the child, and that the abuse included sexual abuse pursuant to MCL 722.622 in the care and custody of Oscar Leo Charles Booker specifically. Today, we have the testimony of the investigating worker, Mr. Kevin Sellers, as well as the testimony of Mr. Ferrier, who's worked with the family over the course of the pendency of the proceedings. The petition was a mandatory petition by law as a result of the allegations. And I do find that the allegations support the grounds of the statute for termination of parental rights for Oscar Leo Charles Booker. Specifically, there was articulated by the child that on 2 separate occasions when she was residing with him, he sexually assaulted her. Specifically, some of the details indicated that on one incident, she had fallen asleep on her father's bed and her father had come into the room and she was awakened by her father. This is a quote from the petition, shoving his penis into her butt. We also had the testimony of Mr. Kevin Sellers that indicated that on at least one occasion that Mr. Booker had removed the clothing of his daughter. And I do find that this constitutes sexual assault as contemplated under the statute, the criminal statute, which also lends itself to supporting the statute for termination of parental rights that would also be on the grounds of sexual assault. I do not find that it could have possibly been consensual given the age of the child at the time. It was clearly done for the intention of sexual gratification. It was clearly harmful for the child, who has had, as a result of that, continuous and effective counseling to help her understand how that has affected her and how it will affect her future relationships and her interactions with other people. So I do find on that evidence, clear and convincing evidence, that the grounds for the statute have been met. The second section of the best interest determination requires the court to look at the best interest of the child. Some of the considerations include whether or not there's a parent-child bond. There has not been any contact between this child and the father since the summer of 2020. And according to the petition and the testimony taken over the course of today's hearing, it may have been also a period of time significantly before that, before she's had any contact. I would also note that the parent-child bond is characterized by inappropriate boundaries, to say the least, sexual assault, which would create a risk to the child to continue the parent-child bond and indicate that the parent-child bond is unhealthy for the child at this point. Child's age and need for stability and permanency. Certainly every child needs stability and permanency. Many times the court weighs that factor more heavily when a child is younger. But I think the facts in this case really show us how important that is for kids of all ages. The child here is several years beyond the allegations, or the incidents, I should say, and has progressed, and because of the stability that was offered for her in her mother's home. There is no question that we need to continue that, and that that continues to be a consideration, and that her needs are best met by terminating Mr. Booker's parental rights and allowing her to remain in the stable, permanent residence that she's in now with her mother, where she's doing well. We had the caseworker's testimony today. We didn't have any additional expert testimony from any of the counselors or anything else, but we did have some reference to that, which also supports that any contact between this child and her father would not be in her best interest. Ms. Heiss certainly is in satisfaction of her obligations as LGAL.
Thank you.
Has brought to us the child's wishes. Thankfully, the child did not have to testify today to the allegations in the petition, to Mr. Booker's credit, frankly. And her wishes brought to us by Ms. Heiss indicate that she is in favor also of severing that legal tie between herself and her father. The child is placed with her mother. She will remain placed with her mother, and there remains no reason to extend the jurisdiction of the court any further. Jurisdiction of the court will be terminated as of today. The child will be released into the full care and custody of her mother, who already has a full custody order. The court will issue an order terminating Mr. Oscar Leo Charles Bucher's parental rights. A copy of that order will also be placed in the circuit court file, in the front of the court file, so that all agencies of the court are well aware of this development, so that they can continue to act in the best interests of the child. Mr. Bucher, of course, has appellate rights. Within 21 days, he would need to file and request an attorney, if he could not afford one, to help prosecute an appeal on his behalf. That attorney would be provided copies of the transcript and any all necessary items from the court in order to fully prosecute that appeal, if he chooses to do that. He's obviously not here for today. We will mail him a copy of the order terminating parental rights, as well as a copy of his appellate rights, so that he has that in his possession. It outlines clearly, again, his appellate rights. So if he wishes to exercise that, he would be able to access our court in order to file that paperwork requesting an attorney if he cannot afford one, or asking directly for the appeal. He also has the right to keep his identifying information on board with our court, with the front of the court, and with DHHS. We will send him some information on how to do that as well. But the termination is being entered under the Juvenile Code today, not the Adoption Code. So there are no further proceedings or issues that need to be addressed by the court this afternoon, as I understand it. Counselors, would you concur?
I agree.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and efforts. Best of luck to you, Ms. Wyrick, moving